Hello and welcome to Larry Has Opinions. Today I've had another of my amazing ideas for a video that no one has ever done before in the history of booktube. And that's a list of my most read authors. I was quite curious to see what will come up because I'm not someone who gets too fixated on specific authors. I'm not really a completist that has to read all the books by an author I like or anything like that. So I really wanted to see what will come up. And also quite often the authors you've read the most by are not necessarily your favorite authors, so I was really keen to see what this would look like. So let's get started. There's quite a few authors I've read 4 books by, and that's quite often because they're all part of one series. So let's start. I have Frank Herbert, and this is the first 4 books in the Dune series. I've recently talked about Dune in one of my videos, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but it's definitely a series I'm very fond of. I've never really felt the desire to read anything else by Frank Herbert, to be honest, as his writing style is probably not my favorite, I have to say. Moving on, I have J.R.R. Tolkien. And this is, I guess, if you consider The Lord of the Rings as 3 separate books. Otherwise, this would just look like 2 books, The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. Again, it's a series, both The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, they're all books I very much respect and I appreciated and enjoyed, but not necessarily among my favorite books of all time, I have to say. Then I have Daniel Abraham, and that's because of the Long Prize Quartet that I've read several years ago now. But it's definitely become a lot more popular in recent times on BookTube, which really pleases me. But I would also try read the Dagger and Coin, I think it's called, the other series by him, to see if it was just a one-off, or perhaps I might enjoy those as well. And he's also the co-author of the Expanse series, which is also on my radar, even though it's quite a big chunky series. I'm not sure when I'll ever get around to it. Then I have Julian May with the Saga of the Exile. And again, that's a quartet, so 4 books. It's just one series. And she's definitely an author I would like to read more by. And I've recommended this series a few times on my channel. I really love for more people to pick it up because it's very entertaining, a very wild ride into the past, into 6 million BC, I think it is, and definitely one that I really enjoyed. I think some people might find it a bit dated because of the writing, but I really enjoyed it. Then still at 4, I have Kazuo Ishiguro, really well-known, really well-loved author as well, Nobel Prize for Literature winner. And I've read Never Let Me Go by him, which is one of my all-time favorites. The Remains of the Day, which I also absolutely adored. And then his more recent works, The Buried Giant and Clara and the Sun, both I found incredibly underwhelming, I have to say. So I do want to read more of his old books, so this number might go up in future as well. And then I have Ian McEwan, and this is all started because several years ago I read Atonement, which is still one of my all-time favorites. And I wanted to read more by him, and I ended up reading Saturday, which didn't really do much for me, I have to say. But then also on Chesil Beach and The Comfort of Strangers. Both of those I quite enjoyed, I have to say. Not as much as Atonement, but I still very much liked. Again, he might be one of those authors that I might read more of in future as well. Then moving up to 5 books, I have Blake Crouch. So sci-fi author, but a really thrillery, really fast-moving sort of science fiction style, which again is very readable and very enjoyable. And this is because I read both Recursion and Dark Matter. Again, both of those I really enjoyed, as well as the Wayward Pines trilogy, which reads incredibly fast and I really, really loved. I think Pines I gave 5 stars to, so I'm not sure if I would call him one of my favorite authors, but he's definitely one of the authors that I would consider reading more of in future as well. Then with 6 books, I have George R.R. Martin, and 5 of those are A Song of Ice and Fire, and the 6th one is Wildcard, which I didn't really care for, to be honest, even though it's a collection of short stories, and I think he only wrote some of them, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm not sure if it really counts. But that sort of put me off reading anything else by him that wasn't A Song of Ice and Fire. So I might read something else by him, but right now it's The Winds of Winter that we're all waiting for. So I don't really care for his other books, if I'm honest. Anyway, let's move on. Still 6 books, Joe Abercrombie. And this is actually, most of these I've read this year because I read the First Law trilogy, and that's 3 books plus Best Served Cold. And then I did read 2 of the Shattered Sea series several years ago, which I thought were okay. So again, I'm not sure if I would call Joe Abercrombie one of my favorite authors, even though he's one of them that I really want to keep reading from, because I haven't actually given any of these 6 books 5 stars. So you might kind of question why do you want to keep going? Still, First Law trilogy I really liked, even though it wasn't 5 stars for me. Still, I really enjoyed. Best Served Cold and Shattered Sea, as I said, I didn't really care too much for, but I want to keep going. So then 7 books, J.K. Rowling, and that's just the 7 Harry Potters. I thought Harry Potter was okay. I quite enjoyed it. I read it as an adult a few years ago. I didn't read it as a kid, so there's no nostalgia attached to it from me. I don't have any particular desire to read anything else that she's written, so I think that might stay at 7 for the foreseeable future. Then 8 books by Ken Follett. I mentioned him a few times, but I really love his historical fiction books. So I've read the 4 books in the Kingsbridge Quartet now, I guess, even though they're all sort of standalones. And I really love, especially The Pillars of the Earth is probably one of my all-time favorites. And then I've also read the Century trilogy, and that makes 7. And then I read Notre Dame, which is a short story of cathedral that he's written after the fire, and Notre Dame, which was okay, like when it was nothing special. But again, he's one of those authors that I probably will keep reading from as well. And then at number 1, my most read author, perhaps a bit surprisingly, but it's Isaac Asimov with 9 books. And I was relatively surprised to see it as my top author, because I have massive respect for what he's written, but it would never occur to me to mention him as one of my favorite authors, even though I really like his books. And this is the Robot series, that's 3 books, plus I, Robot, that's 4, and then the 3 Galactic Empire standalones, and then 2 of the Foundation series. And to be honest, the Foundation series, I barely remember it, so I might even reread it at some point. I don't know. But I have to say that the Robot stories, the Robot series, to me felt a lot more memorable than Foundation for some reason. And all of these, it's been probably at least 10 years since I've read, so I haven't read anything else by him recently. I also have The God Themselves, I think, by him, that is on my TBR possibly. But yeah, I was slightly surprised to find Isaac Asimov on top, even though once I thought about it, I was like, okay, makes sense. And then I actually checked in terms of number of pages. And if you look at number of pages, then Isaac Asimov actually drops off a fair amount, because a lot of his books in the Robot series, etc., they're not that long. So if I was to measure my most read authors based on number of pages, the top 3 would be number 3, J.K. Rowling, about 4,000 pages. Number 2, George R.R. Martin, with 5,800 pages. And number 1, Ken Follett, with almost 7,000 pages. I hope you guys like this video. Please give me a thumbs up. Join our Discord. Let me know what your most read author is down in the comment. And I'll see you the next time.